I pledge allegiance to the flag
the flag
of the States of America and to the
to the
republic,
republic for which
and
it stands,
one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, the first item tonight is not on the agenda, but it deserves recognition, and that is to wish a happy birthday to both Tim Dunn and Mark Hammond. Both birthdays on the same day, so happy birthday, guys. Many happy returns.
Happy birthday.
Next, do we have a motion to accept the town clerk minutes from February 1st?
So moved.
So, second,
Second,
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay, do we have any announcement or comments from town board members?
Yes, Darren, I have one.
Craig?
I would like to thank our planners and our code inspectors for helping out. They're always there doing something that they aren't asked to, and they always got a smile. Thank you, guys and gals.
Thank you very much. Very well said.
I just
Anyone
want to, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I want to commend the Parks and Rec again. I got a group together and we went on the snowshoeing event last week. It was super cold day, but we were also accompanied by a couple of naturalists, and it was really interesting and fun. I now know how to identify two similar looking woodpeckers when they come to my feeder by the length of their beaks, believe it or not.
Wow.
Learned a lot, and I'm really looking forward to more. If there's anybody out there that needs something to do, please look at the brochure, and there's something there for everybody.
Good. Sounds great. Anyone else? Okay. Department
Darren?
heads, Roger, given the weather, as you might imagine, is out on his rounds and trying to keep ahead of this weather, but we have his cell phone. So he said that if anybody needs to ask him any questions or anything, I can just give him a shout on the cell phone. Any other department heads have any comments or questions or announcements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, and that's comments or questions from town residents. Would anyone like to address the board? And Jamie, you'll tell me whether we have any hands up. I see Gary's, but anyone else?
Yes, Tracy D. Ragon's hand was up first.
Okay, we'll do Tracy and then Gary. Okay, Tracy.
Hi, and thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. This is in regards to Mr. Warner's statements from the last meeting. I do not agree with his comments regarding Mrs. Pino's, and I apologize if I misspelled her name or mispronounced her name, actions. This was not standing up for me, my family, or a number of my friends who were also shocked that he thanked someone who took part in that insurrection that caused the death of a police officer and caused injuries to over 140 other police officers in the Capitol and DC. I can't believe that he thanked someone for participating in something like this. My question for the rest of the board is, do you agree with Mr. Warner's statements? Thank you.
Okay, next,
Hey, Darren.
Gary, you were next with your hand up. You're muted, Gary. You're still muted. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, got it. Okay, thank you. Gary Putman, the mayor of Round Lake. At the last town board meeting, Mr. Dunn, referring to the GNIP property, said the following: "I'm not so sure I'm a big fan of purchase of development rights as a general policy tool, and there are ways to protect these properties without using taxpayer monies. Malta, in the very first use of its PDR funds, partnered with Saratoga Plan to conserve 129 acres of the Malta Ridge Orchard and Gardens. The State Department of Ag and Markets Hudson Valley Agricultural Enhancement Program provided $476,000, which seems a wonderful return on investments of Malta's $41,000 investment of developer provided PDR funds. There are many other local examples of towns partnering with organizations like Saratoga Plan to leverage state funds for the preservation of local farmland or woodlands. Regarding his comments that there are ways to protect these properties without using taxpayer monies, I understand that these funds are not provided by the taxpayers, but by the developers as mitigation fees. I would like Mr. Dunn to, one, explain his opposition to using PDRs as a general policy tool. Two, explain why you think that mitigation fees are taxpayer monies. And three, outline the other ways to protect properties without using taxpayer monies, keeping in mind that spot zoning is not an acceptable or legal policy tool. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Jamie, does anyone else have his or her hands up?
No.
All right, I'll give people just a couple of moments here, just in case somebody is muted and doesn't think they're muted. Okay, I think we're good. So we'll move to the next item on the agenda, and that's to discuss the items that are going to be in front of the board at our regular meeting, which is a week from today. And you might have noticed a slight change to the format of our agenda statements. And that's because what we're going to do from now on at the agenda meetings is we'll be just discussing what might come up at the next meeting, because the discussion by the board, may inform, how these items on the regular meetings agenda are phrased, or whether they're kept on the agenda, or whether they're going to result in a resolution, et cetera. So the first item that is actually on for next week is the public hearing that's already been determined by the board. Two public hearings. One is the High Point sidewalks and streets project, and the board has been discussing that for some time. And so we have a public hearing on that, when we'll be hearing from anyone in the public who wants to address the board on that matter. And the second one is the Hearn Road rezoning. The public hearing is already underway. It was kept open on February 1st for the purposes of written comment only. So that hearing is in force, but I expect that it will probably be concluded on Monday, next Monday. But it's still going on, so if anyone wants to submit any written comment on that, they're welcome to do so within the next week if the board decides to close the public hearing. Okay. Depending on what happens at the public hearing for High Point, the next item on the agenda will be for the board to deal with that situation. The possible amendment to our town code and the potential repair or other work done on the sidewalks and walkways within the High Point development.
Darren, do we have any more information about the costs of what I guess we see as two options, either taking them out or repairing them?
We no more information, Cynthia, than what we got before from Evolution, I think, was the company that put in the bid. And I think one thing that the board may want to consider is putting a cap on the amount of money that we're going to spend, just to be, specific about what's going on there. And so, that's one thing for the board to think about, this week, is if we go down this path, we might want to think about putting in the resolution a cap on the amount.
I know at one point we talked about a couple of different options, doing it all in 1 year, doing it over the course of a few years. Are we? I think. Do we need to talk about that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the assumption that we're operating under here is that it would be over the course of a limited number of years, not 10,
Okay.
A few years.
I mean, I personally would like to be able to get it all done in 1 year and be done with it. But again,
Yeah.
not knowing the implications on our budget for that.
Right, I totally agree. I would love to have it all done. If that's the way the board wants to go, I'd love to have it all done by the end of this season, before the late fall.
Yeah.
We have to see what our budget looks like later on in the year, I think. Kevin. I'm using Kevin's computer, so he's.
Keep in mind, town board, that estimate was very, very specific. Okay, related to Thistle, where we definitely identified that, we had a lot of large problems there with heaving sidewalks. It also identified the need to put in the handicap, what's the right word?
Or the warning
Warning
strips.
Yeah, handicap warning strips at the intersections, could, that cost could go up, it could go down. It all depends on the final scope of the project. And, if there's other areas that are identified by all parties that are in need of replacement, that would add to the cost. So I just wanted to make sure that, that's just a very rough estimate on a very specific area, which is those two things I mentioned when I first started talking.
Did we put some money aside in our budget for that this year?
Yeah, there's, I think, $15,000, $14,000 or $15,000 in 2021. And there's already $50,000 sitting set aside in a sidewalk / bikeway capital project fund.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on the High Point situation?
Aaron, we're hoping that in that hearing that we'll have heard from the HOA that results of their survey, correct?
We'll definitely hear from them, and we'll hear what the input from the HOA members, is or was. I'm not exactly sure, what the nature of that input will be. Good Shepherd is also aware of the public hearing. I called them and notified them. So, if they want to be heard on it, they'll participate in the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, that does that. The next item on the for possible action next week is follows up on the public hearing, and that pertains to Hearn Road. So we've discussed that among the board members for a long time. One of the possibilities is the current zoning is a split zoning with a diagonal line drawn from one corner of the property to the other. We've discussed the pros and cons of that drawing. There is a lawsuit on this matter pending. Another possible way that the board might want to go is to put a modified east-west kind of line to divide the LC zoning from the commercial zoning. I think there are good points on both of those, as well as even an R8, which the board discussed some time ago. I'm going to propose the modified east-west line because I think it matches up a little bit better with the contours of the landscape. And that'll be under the board consideration for next week. If the board decides to go that way, then I think the proper approach would be to schedule another public hearing, because the public hearing that's currently ongoing deals with the line drawn from one corner to the opposite corner.
Yeah, I agree with that proposal, Darren. I think that makes the most sense, and we can continue on from there and hopefully get this thing resolved and move forward.
Are we at with the seeker process then?
Sorry?
Where are we at with the seeker process that we started and did not finish?
Well, I mean, we'll have to complete whatever secret process, is needed to complete.
Are we going to see another long form completed for this latest iteration then?
Well, we'll comply with whatever secret requires, John. I mean, we'll talk to Steve and Leah about it and, determine what's required, if that's the way the board wants to go.
I'll look forward to seeing it.
Any other discussion on Hearn? Okay, the next item is the Maltaville Water Assistance Program. And Kevin, I think we have at least one other application.
Yeah.
So we have one other application for the board's consideration next week. The next item on the agenda is the Malta Meadows Apartments pilot agreement, and I think we've been circulating some documents on that, and among board members, we have a draft, a proposed agreement that's been signed by the owner, and this proposal for the board would authorize and direct me to sign that, to countersign it for that pilot.
So there was a lot of stuff going around today, like from John, that I really wasn't quite understanding. Is there an issue or a question, John, you're having about proceeding with renewing the pilot agreement?
No, there's two ways that tax or pilot money comes from a project like this. One is a pilot agreement, such as we've had in effect. The other is because they're affordable housing, they have a particular way they have to be assessed if they are taxable. And the concern I had was to look at the two different approaches to see, where they left Malta. And it looks like the pilot agreement is in fact a fair arrangement for us based on the calculations that Kevin went through from a financial statement. The other concern is how long will this project be affordable housing? It looks like there's a commitment out to the middle of this decade, but at that point in time, the project, we don't know what's going to happen. My questions were all addressed.
Okay, I'm satisfied.
Any other discussion on this item? Okay. We had a couple of departures from some good people in Roger's highway department. But fortunately, Roger has been able to recruit 2 other good replacements. So hopefully we'll be in good shape there. And this would just kind of acknowledge Roger's hiring of them and set the rates, I believe. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, well, we'll have information on these 2 people that he wants to hire. Just not that I'm going to object to Roger's hiring, but
Yeah, it's two men. I mean, we have the names, and I'm sure Roger has the information on it. Have they been hired yet? Has
One is
Roger actually
starting-
hired?
One is supposed to start March 1st, and I think the other one starts maybe March 8th. So,
we seem to be losing a lot of highway guys. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, and I think the reason is that these particular young men found higher paying positions, with heavy equipment in other places, and that's an issue that the board has to deal with at some point. Now, I think we've been fortunate. We have a lot of long-term employees who receive the benefits that government employees, government employment carries with it. So we're very happy that we're able to retain a lot of these long-term employees, but sometimes when we have new employees, they come in and they are skilled at heavy equipment or something else, and something else comes up and they're lured away. So that's, I think, what happened here.
Especially if they're younger, they don't understand the real benefit of the New York State retirement system.
That, yeah, exactly. Plus, they hate me, but
Doubt it.
well, it's also twofold though. One other comment is that a couple of these individuals, okay, they were not younger, okay, they weren't old either, okay, they're they've been in the career for a little while, but they don't have any longevity here either. Okay, in which you don't have the benefit, you haven't accumulated sick time, vacation time, and personal time. They just started. So for them to move from one job to another, they're in essence, starting over again, but only 2 years later, so to speak.
I'm just gonna stick with they don't like Darren.
That's my story and I'm sticking to it. All right, the next item on the, for the board's consideration next week is building permit fees. And the board has discussed this issue before. One of the problems is that our fees are based on the square footage. And that number rises very, very quickly as the square footage gets into a big, big building. You know, we haven't had to deal with that kind of situation in Malta. And, you know, under consideration are applications for, you know, large distribution centers, last mile centers, warehouse centers. And so the idea is that it doesn't, once you get up to a certain level of square footage, you know, it's not fair to keep on imposing costs at that rate. And so, you know, the proposal here is going to be to cap the building permit fee for any building, any commercial building at $250,000.
Yeah, and I just want to underscore that, you know, I think Darren shared a few examples in the past of how other towns have done this. And, you know, there aren't a lot of towns around the state that have encountered this with really large investments. But I know through my work in economic development, I've talked to a handful that have done this, and they have different ways of trying to solve the conundrum, because the building permit fee is really supposed to be a fee that covers the cost of our staff time in processing these activities, not, as I've referred to it in the past, as a lottery ticket. You know, we have seen around the state where other communities will do it based on an investment model, you know, based on the investment. I've even seen in some places where you know, an applicant or an investor had not realized the size of the building they were going to get for this building permit fee until they were ready to break ground, and were surprised by fees in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know in a project in the Mohawk Valley, this occurred, and the Herkimer County IDA stepped in and covered the cost of the building permit fee. I think if we've gone through the process of due diligence and done all our work, have a huge bill that gets thrown onto an unsuspecting investor, it certainly isn't the right way to go about doing business and a smart long-term strategy. So I think this is a really smart approach, Darren. We don't have a lot of precedents to follow around the state because not a lot of folks have encountered this, but I think it's a smart approach to take.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
we're confident that the cap will cover any expenses we have. I mean, obviously, sounds like a lot of money to me, but I mean, because the idea is those fees should cover what it costs us to put a project together.
Yeah, we've talked, you know, we've had discussions with Jamie on it, and we feel that 250,000 is a very safe number in terms of covering the expenses for the town.
And remember, this is just one of many fees that a new
Right.
project will incur when they come in. You know, I've heard some projects joke about how it's the, you know, for the luxury of doing business in Malta, some of the fees that they get imposed upon them. So I think from what I've heard from Jamie, we should be in good shape with this. And it seems like it's going to be a rather infrequent occurrence. I don't suspect that we would have so many that would trigger this cap.
Hopefully
Well,
not.
do we have equity in I understand the point about a large project, but is these fees are, as Tim says, supposed to be reflective of our cost to actually do the inspection work. And that includes both direct and indirect costs and our overhead for people and such. You know, down in the lower ranges of projects, are the fees equitable at that level? You know, has somebody looked at that?
Well, I mean, they're the same fees that we've had for a long time, and they're, you know, I don't think they're in terms of per square footage, I don't think they're out of kilter with, you know, other municipalities. So,
Well,
you know, we haven't had a complaint, I think, right? Jamie, has anyone ever complained that those fees at that level are unfair because they're more than the cost?
No, not to my knowledge. Of course, the highest fees that I have notes on were over at Ellsworth buildings, and that was in the neighborhood of $67,386. You know, the hospital's new building was 24,452. Most times, if we do get complaints, it's directly related to the traffic mitigation fees, which, you know, we undertook looking at the finding statements and trying to narrow that down some. So I think it's not lost on the development community that the town board's cognizant of the fees. But I would say that, you know, to date, we haven't had any complaints that I've been aware of. And also, I think that, you know, it's definitely covering our costs that we associate, even administrative and so on. So,
You know, are those numbers approximate to the cost involved in actually doing the work? Or are we overcharging at those, for example, your two examples? Is that, you know, does that bear some rational proximity to the actual cost of doing the work? Because if we're, you know, if that's our concern, to try and more closely align our fees with our actual expense, you know, let's do it and not just pick out one particular project that might happen and benefit them.
right. Well, I think another thing to take into consideration is the type of construction that permit fees are related to. So a warehouse, although it's large, you know, footprint wise, is very different inspection wise than one of the medical buildings and so forth too. So you'd actually have to kind of group it down into the types of buildings and the types of inspections that are needed, you know, for the different types of buildings. Like Mohawk Chevrolet, for instance, is a large building. Greg, one of the code enforcement officers, dedicated his lunch hour every day of the week for a month, maybe 2 months. You know, it was just a standing appointment at noon. He'd be there every day at that site for whatever they needed. Kind of like Global Foundries in a way, you know, having somebody right on site all the time, which they were very appreciative of. But, you know, I mean, I could calculate out some numbers, but it's kind of difficult depending upon the type of building. So these warehouses are larger than the warehouses that we're talking about, if they get to that point, are large in square footage, but I'm not sure, you know, how much inspection interior will be needed. It depend on every time they have a fit up, you know, because you have
How
your
would
building
that
permit
cap-
fee, then you have fit up fees. So,
Jamie, how would the cap work in your concept? Would it apply only to these large warehouse buildings, or is it an across the board cap?
A good point.
well, it would be across the board cap, but you know, in this case, we're directly relating it to these warehouse buildings because we haven't had, you know, square footages that big. I mean, I don't know if I have the square footages written down, but certainly, I mean, aside from Global Foundries, of course, these warehouses are pretty sizable as proposed. That who knows what'll actually be on the ground, but
To your point that you're making there, what happens when, you know, another Global Foundries type advanced manufacturing project comes forward where you have a large building envelope and, you know, some fairly intricate systems in the building?
right.
Where does that leave us with a $250,000 cap?
Well, in that case, I would say that we would probably have Chazen involved to be helping out with doing some of the inspection work for the intricate pieces, like the medical building. Well, one of the
Right.
medical buildings, you know, some of it we're not qualified to do because it's extremely specific with surgery centers and things. And so we enlist help from Chazen and get a, you know, escrow put together, an estimate from them. So, you know, that's kind of how we would go. So the building permit fee basically pays for our department and what we're able to do. And then if there's something above and beyond, then it usually goes into an escrow situation like most things, you know, engineering, legal, that.
So
So I don't think
the
it would
cap-
put us in a lurch if we were to cap it, but I also think it's hard to know what the right number is at the same time. Some of the surrounding towns have coefficients and things based upon the type of building and that. And I had said to Darren that I really don't recommend that only because it's so much calculating and so many opportunities for error. And we're already calculating a lot of fees in addition to a straight, you know, square footage fee.
Yeah, this appears to be the simplest, most straightforward approach
for real world scenarios that we may face.
But to be clear, the 250,000 cap is not an absolute cap. That would be for our general inspections, and for inspections which we could not complete, there would be additional charges to the applicant for them. Is that my understanding?
That's what past practices have been, but it's only been when it's a situation where we don't have the expertise or the knowledge to properly inspect what has to go in there, like a medical building. There's
So
some
the-
systems in there that we just don't
I
have the
understand,
knowledge.
right, and nor could you be
Mm-hmm.
expected. But so there's gonna be a carve out to the 250 to address this particular concern that you're speaking to, where we can't do the inspections.
Lost you, John.
The question is there gonna be a carve out to the $250,000 cap for projects where we cannot do the inspections and have to enlist a third party to do them on our behalf?
Well, I think that there is an opportunity to do that. It's not the way that we do it now. You know, we collect the building permit fee, and then if we need additional inspection services, we get an estimate from Chazen and collect money from the applicant. It would just be a matter of keeping track of time on our end to try and figure out of that $250,000. You know, if we have a code enforcement or two that are out there every day for a certain amount of time, for a certain period of time, you know, what we have left. So I think
Hey,
there's an
Jamie.
opportunity to do it, to carve out money out of that 250 if we needed specialized inspections. It would just take a different type of tracking time, you know, on our end that we haven't really done that I know of.
Hey, Jamie,
Mhm.
what actually triggers hiring a separate engineering firm for that? And is that a separate fee that gets put back on the developer?
So like the medical building that
It's a
I was
trigger point.
mentioning, one of them, I can't remember which number, the surgery center, I don't know if it's 6 or 8, but you know, there's a lot of specialized systems in there dealing with gases and different things directly connected to their laparoscopic machinery and such. And so we don't necessarily have that knowledge to go in there and inspect. We can do the footings, foundation, the walls, you know, different things, but those systems, that's when we have to call, even looking at the drawings, for instance, of the drawings over there, you know, we enlisted Chazen to help us look at the drawings to make sure there weren't things we were missing because of the type of construction that it is. So you've got sometimes the drawing portion that you need help with, and sometimes it's also the inspection piece too. So it depends. That's what everything's a little bit different, but that's what triggers it. You know, if the guys get a permit in and they look at it and say, oh, gee, you know, these are some things that we don't have training for, we're going to need some help. We reach out to Chazen because they're our town designated engineer and ask them to look at these things. And it always gets charged back to, you know, the developer. We don't bear any of that cost. If we're looking
Thank
at plan review and things, you know, depending upon how much it is, you know, I remember collecting fees, but it's the same thing as our other escrow, right? If we don't use it, we give it back.
What I want to
Jamie,
be,
this legislation that's proposed, do you have any concerns about it?
I don't, no.
Thanks.
well, I do, and the concern is that if we have, it's not clear to me, if I'm a developer and I come in, and I happen to have some of these intricate, you know, features to my building, and I look and I see 250,000 is my max permit fee, I don't know that I'm potentially going to get stuck with additional inspection charges, right?
Mhm.
Don't know that unless our building permit fee system has some kind of criteria that allows a determination to be made that extra charges will apply, right? So if we are going to apply extra charges under some circumstances, our fee structure should provide for
Like
that,
that.
right?
Mhm. Okay.
You know, I'm thinking of the next Global Foundries, which we all, you know, their next bill, which we all hope happens. You know, we have to have a fee system that will accommodate that.
Mhm.
I thought our present code did that, but you know, I haven't checked it, you know, I'm not absolutely sure. but-
Jamie, isn't that the systems fee? That's, you know, I know we get it in from Global Foundries currently that they have a system building permit fee. Isn't that fee,
Yeah, I think it's called it's called something else, but yes,
right?
it is.
Okay.
So
I think of what it
our
is.
current fee system has that opening, that flexibility then to charge applicants for our out-of-pocket costs for engineers.
I believe it does. We'll get back to you. We'll get back to the board tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Show you the language.
All right, any other discussion on the building permit fee? The next item is budget transfers. I think we'll have a few proposed budget transfers next week, right, Kevin?
Yes, there's two proposed budget transfers that I'm aware of. One is to recognize the fact that we got a New York State Justice Court grant that was larger than anticipated in our budget. So we're going to increase that by $3,000, both revenues and expenses. And the other component is to provide the necessary estimated costs to obtain the potential cost of the right of way for the old Post Road project, which we have had appraised. The narrow strip taking that we need to take for the right of way. And we're trying to proceed to concluding acquisition of that so that we can get this project out on the street for bid.
All righty, thanks, Kevin. All right, before we get to other town board business, we talked about our budget both during the budget negotiations and the budget formulation. And we talked about the budget cuts that we took, and the representation, the promise was that we were going to revisit that to the extent that we have more experience in our sales tax revenues from the county. We have a little bit of experience so far. And, what we'll be putting together this week and finalizing is a proposal for the board's consideration next week to, try to rectify some of these cuts, especially in terms of personnel. And this goes back to, some of the loss of personnel that we have in the town. So we'll put that together during the week and, we'll get it out to the board so that they can consider it before Monday's meeting. All right, next, any other business?
I just want to ask about something we, last year, we authorized a second map plan and report for a potential ambulance district. I know that Malta Stillwater Ambulance is anxious to find out where we are with that and how we, plan to proceed forward. So I wonder if, first of all, is the map plan and report prepared yet? When can we expect to see it? And are there any other new nuances towards the district?
Yeah, and we're working on that. It's a major project. We are trying to figure out what kind of ways we can that such a district might be formed. So possibly that not all of the expenses for the ambulance service would be paid through a district, but we could still pay for some of it through our sales tax revenues. And Steve, I think you're getting together a letter to the controller to see what the parameters are and kind of a hybrid structure like that, right?
Yes, I drafted a letter, made some changes today. I don't think it got out in the mail today, but I have prepared a letter to the controller to ask some questions regarding the formation of the district and if it's, for example, limited to equipment purchase and the general ambulance versus emergency medical services, if that would allow for a different treatment of payment through ad valorem taxes versus general sales tax. So that letter either went today in the mail or it'll be going tomorrow.
I know our appropriation to them is really twofold. One of them is, for operations and personnel and all that, and the other one is partly to pay their mortgage, right? A mortgage, so have we thought about that sort of split, or?
Yeah,
that-
I mean, I think the split under consideration has to deal with, equipment, versus other expenses. We tossed around the mortgage deal, and we know when that mortgage comes to an end. Arguably, well, once one mortgage comes to an end, there's repairs, and all of a sudden you're incurring more debt just to pay the repairs for a building that's existing. So, we're not sure, what's going to be the right way to split this up, or if it's even possible. But yeah, we're looking to kind of divide it along some sort of logical line.
So Darren, when is that report going to be finished? Any estimate on that?
As soon as we get the answer from the controller, we're basically ready to incorporate that and, proceed to the next step with the map and report.
Sounds good. Thank you. Hey, Darren, I got something.
Okay.
I would like to address reaction to the statement last meeting that has been so controversial. Let me start by saying Joe Biden and I do have some things in common. One of this is we both stutter. If any of you understand this speech impediment, you would understand that words don't always come out the way you want them to. It has taken me many years to be able to speak in public. I think I do a pretty good job most of the time, not always. So, with this being said, let me clarify. I oppose violence of any kind, and I do not condone the violence that happened at the Capitol January 6th, or from any other violent acts. Let me repeat, I am against the violence and the breaching of the Capitol on January 6th. My intention was to state, because Sharon was not charged with any crime, and from what I understand, she was there to peacefully protest. I was trying to separate the person that I have come to know from this incident. When I said she stood up for our rights, I was referring to our right to free speech and the right to peacefully protest, which is within our First Amendment. This right has been exercised in this country for a good part of the summer. Most people attend these marches to peacefully protest. Unfortunately, many times there are bad people that commit violent acts, which is very unfortunate. Many are those to peacefully protest. I see this as two separate things: violence versus peaceful protest. I know that many of us have different political views, but that's what makes this country so great. We're able to debate freely and openly. I apologize for any confusion that my statement may have caused, and hope the hate and the threats to my life and my family will end here. My prayer is we can learn to respect one another as we all move forward. Thank you, Supervisor.
Thanks, Craig.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Craig. All right, next item on the agenda is additional comments. Do we have any additional comments from members of the public that you'd like to make to the town board?
Darren,
Oh, John.
before you move ahead, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Is there any general update you could give us with respect to the county's efforts with supporting the vaccination of citizens town?
The county is putting together, has put together an internet-based list. You know, people who are eligible or anybody can just put their names on that list to, you know, have it recorded someplace. And to the extent, you know, the county is provided with additional vaccinations, you know, we can resort to that list on a countywide basis. Now, the town of Malta, you know, has been taking names all along. And, you know, I have a list that Kathy Eitzman and I have been dealing with and making sure it's complete of names, ages, and whether there are other comorbidities. So we are going to be working in the next few days of getting all those people on the county list. Now, we kind of have to do that by contacting the people on the list and either being on the phone with them when we're entering the data or having them do it themselves, because they have to kind of certify that the answers to these questions are the truth. And, you know, we can't make that certification for anybody. So, you know, we're going to be moving forward on that. And yes, so the county has done that. They, you know, as you probably know, they're having regular press conferences by the commissioner, the new commissioner of health, Dr. Kuhls. He's an epidemiologist that was just hired by the county. And so they are giving regular updates to the public via, you know, the press conferences and also, you know, the data that comes out on pretty much a daily basis from the county.
Well,
Hey,
I
Darren?
just appreciate your efforts and Kathy's efforts to, you know, make sure the people of Malta get the best that they can when it comes to, you know, access to vaccines.
Thanks, John. Anybody else before
Hey,
we go to
Darren.
public comment?
Is that separate from the state sign up, or is it inclusive?
Separate.
with
So,
the
you know,
county?
yeah, it's separate, I believe. And so what we're encouraging people is to, you know, when they sign up for something, don't just rely on that. You know, they gotta keep on, you know, stabbing away and keep on kind of hovering on the internet. I've heard some people kind of hover and wait for vacancies. And is it a pain? Yep, it's a pain, but we're encouraging everybody whose name we take to keep on trying to get it through any available means.
So,
Darren,
for
when you-
example, if I signed up out in Utica, could I also keep on trying to sign up for something closer without it hurting that other date that I have out in March or so?
I believe the answer is yes. And that's because if you get it, then you'd be off that list, and then that would be an opening, and people who are waiting for an opening would quickly fill that slot. So
Oh,
I
okay.
think that's the answer to that question.
Thank you.
Darren, just for information, if you try to sign up on the, from the Saratoga County website, it does redirect you to the state site,
It does.
but it redirects you to the state site to try to sign up in Saratoga County. So
Okay.
it's all the same kind of process. It actually, if you can find an available appointment, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's just getting there when it doesn't say no appointments available.
Okay. Fair enough. And
And you
hopefully,
can sign up and keep that other appointment, and eventually you'll get a notice that says you have 2 appointments, so cancel one.
Oh,
So,
really? Okay, good. Thank you.
anything else from board members? Okay, then we'll move on to public comment. Does anyone have anything? I know I saw Kathy Eitzman's hand up, so if anyone in the public has anything they'd like to address to the board, and so I see Kathy's hand up. So Kathy.
Yes, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for teaming up with me to get these seniors taken care of in the area. And I probably had 25 names recently. These people have no transportation. They have no computer, and they have no family to help them make appointments. So I will dedicate Tuesday and Wednesday getting these people on that Saratoga list. But I'm very disappointed that CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, these are where these people are getting their prescriptions. And not one of these entities is addressing the senior apartments. There's over 150 seniors that I know of that live in senior apartments, low income, and they cannot get appointments. And I've offered to drive them to Albany, wherever they need to go, not Utica, but I have offered to drive them. but it's so difficult. So I
Yes.
will dedicate time to try to get this done as soon as possible. If you do schedule a second appointment, what they'll do is they'll notify you that you either have to tell them which appointment you're going to keep, or they will cancel the one further out.
Oh,
They automatically cancel. If you have two, they'll keep the one closest to up and they will cancel the one farthest out. Okay, so that answers that question. We've had a small influx of new members, probably 7 or 8, and all but one of those live in the boundaries of Malta, and I'm very excited about that. We do exercise 2 times a week. I said last month it was 1 time a week. No, we're exercising twice a week. We're getting strong, we're staying healthy. It's a nice group of ladies and gentlemen, and we really are enjoying that. Our March 1st meeting will be off-site. So every 3 months, we try to do a luncheon. We've been doing takeout, but this time we are going to go off-site to Longfellows, and we've got 68 attending in 2 seatings. And they've done a good job there under the COVID protocol. So we're going to try that and see how that works out. But that's pretty much all that's new with the seniors. We're staying healthy, tired of the snow. Murray offered to take me someplace warm, but I said he could never get me back here if he did that. So I guess we're staying put.
All righty. Thank you, Kathy. And yeah, that the problem with people who are kind of homebound is a real one. And I know that a few weekends ago, the county had a reach out effort to that. And Scott, I see Scott's on the meeting. So thank you very much to your team, Scott, for going out and getting vaccines to a lot of these homebound seniors that we have here in Malta. So really nice work. Kathy, you have your hand up again.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you for that. That has been wonderful. And I think the most disappointing thing that I'm seeing is in all of the news, all the media that's out there, they're talking about everybody getting shots, and they have totally eliminated the 65 and over. As far as, oh, we have 200 shots, 100 are going here, 100 are going there. They never say, and we've saved some for seniors. Now, from what I understand, that's what the pharmacies are doing. But the problem with that is those pharmacies are kind of only taking care of their clients that come in and get prescriptions and not necessarily with appointments. So I'm going to do what I can. We've got a lot of seniors that are very, very worried, and we need to get them taken care of as soon as possible.
All righty. Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? I see Michael Ponticello's hands up.
Yeah, Michael Ponticello. Thank you, Supervisor O'Connor. I'm a new resident of the area. I just purchased property at 53 Admirals Way in November. My wife and I, so I'm a retired school principal from Fulton County area. Served on a board of supervisors in Fulton County for a few years. So I'm just trying to get up to stuff on the issues. I appreciate you giving me the time. Thank you.
Thanks for
Welcome to
coming to
Malta,
the meeting.
Michael.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Jamie, do we have any other hands up?
Not that I see, no.
Okay, I'll give it just a moment. Okay, I think we're good. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. We'll see you next week.
Everyone.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.